Hello and welcome to ACO Chess. I want to look at ideas which people the plans which conflict in a game early on, especially in the opening, and how that can easily determine the outcome of a game. The idea behind this game is really a struggle in planning. The game is between Klaman and Smyslov. This was played in 1947 in the USSR Championships, and the game went d4, knight f6, and after knight f3, we get b6. Now it's important to really understand what the intentions at this moment already are. And into this move b6 goes a great deal of planning. The idea is to create a strong piece pressure. So if you look at the knight on f6, it exerts a lot of pressure on the square e4 and d5. And black's intention is to put this bishop on b7. Now d5 is not that important in this particular discussion, but e4 is really what black wants to control. His idea is, if he can, he wants to put his knight on e4 and maybe push the pawn on f5. You see this kind of structure in the Dutch opening. And from the modest pawn moves, you can see that already there is quite a concrete intent on black's part. So white plays knight to c3. Now, white's plan consists of organizing counter pressure against this idea of putting the bishop on b7 and controlling e4. So his hope is, if he can, he wants to push the pawn to e4. So he's got these two pawns controlling the center. If he can do that, he's really succeeded. Black goes bishop b7, immediately preventing this idea of pushing e4. So already you can see the intention, counter intention that's happening in this position. So now white undermines the control of this e4. He reckons if he removes the knight, then he can push this pawn to e4, and he succeeded in terms of his intentions. Whenever you can put these two pawns together, it's an ideal scene. We call it a pawn center in chess. Of course, your opponent is not going to let you do it. That's what he's sort of playing against. Because once you've got pawns like that, it makes it very difficult for black, let's say, to put his pieces in the center. So that's something that he's constantly fighting against. So now you can see that white is obviously ready to carry out this plan. Now, there's a couple of things. In the game, black played d5, which is a big mistake, and I'll go into why that is a mistake shortly. It's interesting to look and see the initial idea, which was to play knight e4. No longer really works here, because after knight takes, bishop takes, knight goes back here, and the bishop has to go back. Now white gets this ideal center, which we were talking about. So in the opening, these plans actually that are already happening, and players are already in conflict over them. Black's attempt here of playing d5 to stop this idea of having these two pawn centers is very logical, but unfortunately it's not the right plan. You should have maybe interesting, but you should have maybe tried something completely different, at least something which does not block his bishop. So if we go back a little bit here, we can see that maybe you should undermine this pawn with c5, so that there's no two pawns at the end of the day. Or you should pick what he gets from this exchange. For instance, he could force white to take the knight, which would give him 2 bishops. So for instance, let's say if he plays e6, e4, now h6 would force white to take here. And now he could argue that maybe in exchange for the pawn center, he has the bishop pair. But that would be a different discussion. Essentially here, he decides to fight the problem in a different way, which is to play d5. Now d5 is the drawback of obviously blocking his own bishop. So here, this is kind of like a long-term thing now. So white plays e3, black goes e6, and now knight to e5, bishop e7, now bishop b5 check. This is also a very nice move. It forces black to put his pawns on the same color as his bishop, further limiting the scope of that bishop on b7. So after c6, bishop d3, c5. Yes, you can go bishop b5 check, but the problem is your bishop will end up maybe getting trapped on this side. So it's a short-term check. He will just play king f8, yes, but he'll be able to figure out his king here. So white played castles and black played castles. This short castling goes straight into white's aim, so it's not really the brightest. You should have maybe tried a6, maybe on the queen side, not hurrying to make himself into a target. By short castling, now it becomes clear where the king is. White starts moving his pieces in that direction, and knight c6 doesn't really help, because now queen h3, and white is already threatening bishop f6, followed by queen takes on h7 mate. So here black goes g6. This is a mistake. The better idea under the circumstances was maybe to take on e5, and after pawn takes on e5, go knight e4, and now after knight e4, of course there's a couple of pieces hanging, but bishop takes is forcing because it threatens mate. So d takes e4, and here you get in another tempo with rook a d1, queen e8, and at this point you can see that it's clearly in white's favor, although the win is a bit of a distance away from this point. This would have been the better option. So after queen h3, g6, preventing mate, and this allows a very nice idea. It would be a nice point to pause the video and see what white played. Of course, if you did pause the video, I think your ability is quite high if you found the move bishop a6. It's a witty and surprising idea, leading to the win of an exchange. So let's say, for instance, black goes queen c8, and here what would be the move? Okay, yeah, so here you run into okay, so here you would run into knight c6, queen c6, bishop b7, queen b7, and now queen h4. So the knight can move because the bishop is hanging, so king has to come, but after bishop h6 you pick up the rook. Okay, so going back a little bit here, if bishop h6, then you have knight takes c6, and after queen e8 you have knight e7 with check, queen e7, and now queen h4. And again, you have this idea of king g7, and which you can take advantage with bishop h6. So a very short game, but demonstrating the struggle of the different plans that each side was coming up with, which makes this whole game very interesting. Okay, I hope that was very instructive. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.